Hello and a warm welcome back to the Earle Wellbeing YouTube channel. And as regular watchers, listeners will know, there's been so much chat and so much response here on YouTube to the post that I've made in recent weeks, particularly focusing on menopause. So I am so delighted today to be joined by the most amazing doctor, educator, trustee of the Menopause Charity, Dr Radhika Vohra. I hope I've said that correctly. Radhika Vohra. Thank you very much for being.
Hi Liz. Thank you for having me.
It's such a pleasure, and it's been such a buzzy time for anybody who is kind of watching this in real time. When we're recording this in May 2021, will know that there's been such excitement around the documentary that was on air last week with Davina McCall and the journalist Kate Muir, really just raising so much more awareness. And of course, the launch of the Menopause Charity that went live last week. We've got news that the free Balance App, the Menopause Balance App, has been voted one of the top health apps in the Apple Store. It just seems that all of this information is coming together at such an exciting time for women. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree. I think it's a conversation that was long needed. And, there's never going to be a perfect time where everything else settles and women get that platform to seek and help and improve education. So now is the most exciting time to get everything coming together.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things I just want to kick off with there is I've noticed I was very active on Twitter actually during the evening of Davina's documentary. It just seemed there was this whole Twitter storm, and at one point, menopause was trending, and it was, that was all really good news. But there were some negative comments, people saying, "Oh, I can't believe women are still banging on about this. It's just a natural process. We've always had to cope with it. Just get on with it." And I think, one of the points that was being made is that women are living longer now than ever. I think it's only in fairly recent years that we've started to live, beyond our mid-60s. I think the average age in the UK of life expectancy is 84 for women. So we may well be living with, 40 plus years of missing estrogen. I mean, what's your view as a doctor in terms of aging well and the importance of talking about this now?
No, it's so important to talk about now with the ageing population, with the fact that we have the evidence of the disease risks that estrogen deficiency brings with it. But also, it's just like treating it like any other hormonal deficiency. It's just as natural to have low thyroid, and we actively replace that very easily with hypothyroidism. This is low estrogen, and it is important to embrace it's natural. No one's taking that away from it, but what we're trying to say is we can do lots of things to help women live through this natural state of lack of estrogen. It doesn't mean they need to just be avoiding everything. They can have lots of help to get through it.
Yeah, because of course I guess ultimately the most natural thing is death, isn't it? That's the most natural thing. But actually we are evading that by living longer and wanting to live well. We're working longer. Women's working lives are being extended. We're I've heard you talk before about the sandwich generation, caring for older parents and younger members of the family, and having to cope with it all. And so many women, too many women, are losing their place in the workplace, aren't they? I mean, as a GP, I know that you're aware of women who are leaving work because they can't cope with menopause symptoms.
Yes, every week at least, a woman who's worked really hard to reach a platform in her career and then finding that she can't cope because of her menopausal symptoms, and there might not be the support structure within the family or the awareness or with the employer supporting her through that, and 1 in 5 women will leave work, and that's not accounting for those that will make changes to their work. So it's very common to reduce hours,
yes,
or change working circumstances. So it's incredibly important we get the help to the working women.
Gosh, 1 in 5 will leave work, and obviously, for the older woman too, there's all that wisdom and experience and knowledge that is then being lost. Yeah. And as you say, if it's 1 in 5 who are just leaving, let alone all the others who are maybe working under par or who are adjusting their work and working less. And it's not just it's not only the physical symptoms of the sweats and the discomfort, the achy joints, the distraction, but it's also the loss of cognitive function, isn't it? It's loss of memory and this dreaded brain fog and perhaps inability to process information, making poor decisions. That's a significant risk factor for business too, isn't it, for employers?
It is, and absolutely, and that's how it's become recognised is, women struggling, for example, in a teaching role, or even I've seen doctors struggle hugely, and we have evidence to show that even within the medical profession, women are reluctant to seek help or are finding it difficult to seek support with menopause, and there's a study that showed that women struggle, and they're 47% of the workforce. So it's incredibly important, and if they're not in the working environment, they play a massive role in the future of society. There's evidence to show they have a huge role to play in the way children and society pans out. So it's really important that they feel well, and we do what we can to help them.
As an educator, what advice would you have for either women in the workplace or employers looking after women?
I think it's difficult because it depends on the job, and it depends on what their needs are and what their working environment is. But just starting the conversation is the first thing to take away that taboo from it. There's still a degree of mocking in the workplace. There's I think the programme helped a lot to understand that there's so much more than hot flushes. So many women will still think that as long as the hot flushes are dampening down, they've gone through the menopause and they're fine. I often hear this phrase, "I'm one of the lucky ones," and I never quite know how to understand that. But
Yes.
I think the employers can really help with understanding and allowing work adjustments, and it can be simple things like breaks or occupational health checks, allowing that. But it is under-recognised, and it's not helped by not being part of any sort of medical screening or support structure in employment.
Yes, and it really is extraordinary. And I know that with the launch of the Menopause Charity, which is really exciting, I'm very pleased and proud to be an ambassador. And I know that you are a trustee with a specific focus on education. And one of the aims of the charity really is to help educate, and not just educate women, but educate the educators, if you like, educate the GPs and the practice nurses. What kinds of initiatives will the charity be doing?
Well, first of all, the charity aims to increase the awareness and increase the conversation, which is already happening. Secondly, we're going to be contacting every practice by email and offering them the modules in confidence that we have with 14 Fish, to be allowing them to have one professional within their practice who is trained to be able to help their population. So that would be the woman who's calling in can ask the receptionist which clinician is interested in menopause, and they could have the opportunity to train up, and the charity will gift that education to that practice individually across the UK.
That's extraordinarily generous, isn't it? So every single GP practice in the UK is going to be gifted by the Menopause Charity this independent, clinically accredited training programme for health professionals, whether it's a GP or a practice nurse, prescribing nurse. And that's for one practitioner in every single practice in the nation. Is that right? I mean,
absolutely.
That is going to make a massive difference, isn't it? Because as we've talked about before on my podcasts, there is this lack of training for medics, scandalous lack of training. Nothing through medical school, very, very little. And then, very much, a kind of, lottery ticket as to whether it happens or not during your GP training. So for GPs who 51% of their patients female, all of whom will have some form of hormone deficiency through perimenopause and menopause. I mean, even if you say, oh, I'm one of the lucky ones, I wasn't affected, you're still going to be losing estrogen, aren't you, even if you don't have the symptoms?
No, absolutely. And I think that's what we need to get the message out there, is this is impacting all women. Yeah. And all of those women will come to their practice because that's their port of call for support, and we want to empower those practices to be able to provide practical help and solutions to the women who come into them, so they're not having to come year on year. And in clinical practice, like you see women who have seen 5-6 specialists come every few weeks, and they're not getting the help they need. And I can see the turnaround in that they'll stop coming as much. So it actually will help their health and help the GPs look after them more.
Gosh, so yeah, so that there'll be the practices will be less stretched. I guess funding will be improved. I mean, I know as you do of many cases of women who've had palpitations, an irregular heartbeat, who've gone off endless ECGs and cardiograms and cardiology consultancy and all of that, and actually a little bit of transdermal natural estrogen, palpitations stop. And that's just one example, isn't it? I'm sure there are many others of referrals to arthritis consultants when it's achy bones and joints, or maybe psychiatric care when it's low mood and depression and anxiety. There is just so much, isn't there? And osteoporosis, that's another key one, isn't there?
There is, and I think neurology is another key one, with the brain impact that lack of estrogen will have with concentration and processing slowing down. So women just feel that they cannot think. That can be quite frightening, so they're often waiting months and months to see neurologists. And on the vast majority, the investigations are okay. And once we're ruling out these diseases, rather than being told it's not that disease, we want the professionals to get their thinking caps gearing towards, is this estrogen deficiency? And look, what can I do to help that? And to have that conversation with the patient in front of them. So women feel that they're getting the care that they, of course it's important to rule out other causes, but it's also important to think about menopause at the same time.
Definitely. And it's very interesting the way that menopause is almost being reframed now as a hormone deficiency, as a disease of hormone deficiency. And doctors are very used, aren't they, to prescribing hormones, to prescribing insulin, for example, prescribing thyroxine. And I imagine, though, that there is still this huge misinformation and worry and concern about breast cancer in particular. I thought Davina did a very good job actually in her documentary of really highlighting how far less scary that is in reality. But what is there, if we come back to the 14 Fish training module for GPs, what is there on that helps with that information, helps to put that in perspective?
No, thank you for that. It's really important. There's a whole module on breast cancer and risk assessment in women and what is concerning. And I think that the British Menopause Society has supported trying to take away some of the misconceptions around the exaggerated risk with HRT and breast cancer. So we're hoping that module can really help GPs feel more at ease about the risks and have that conversation with their patients so the woman can weigh up benefits against risks. And breast cancer patients are really, or with the family history, they're really frightened and they're suffering. And quite often the treatment they go through puts them through so much. And they're suffering with hot flushes, but they're also suffering hugely with body aches. And we can really make a difference to them. And I think it does make a huge difference to have that conversation and let the woman make the decision.
Yes.
But having the facts really will help GPs feel more confident.
Yeah. And then, of course, for women who have had breast cancer and have had breast cancer treatment, there are still so many options, aren't there, available that can help. So it's and I know that Menopause Doctor has got a lot of information on the Newson Health website, and I know the Menopause Charity as well is working very hard in that area, because it can be just devastating for a woman when you lose your estrogen. The health impact of that is extraordinary, and it doesn't have to be as bad if you've got sort of good medical care around you. But there are still some forms of HRT that you can have, aren't there?
There are indeed, and I think women who are pushed into a surgical menopause through treatment, that's a huge shock on their body.
Yeah.
And it can often be that the pressure of going through treatment can mean that the menopause symptoms aren't addressed as much, but there is a huge amount of literature and information and support out there. So, we want them to get help that they need because they've been through enough already.
Yeah, and it's breast cancer is just such an emotive topic, and I know that a lot of women will say, "Oh, HRT gave me breast cancer," and how do you respond when somebody says that?
I think it's really important to understand that the commonest cause of death in women in this country is actually dementia, and the second commonest is heart disease. And HRT will actually reduce your risk of getting both of those. So breast cancer is the 7th commonest cause of death. And although it's thoroughly unpleasant and very sad for the woman going through it, taking HRT doesn't increase their risk of dying from breast cancer. Most women with breast cancer who may have had HRT actually still die from cardiovascular disease. So it's really important to recognise that.
That's a really interesting way.
So I know I've given you a bit of medical jargon there, but it's really important to simplify it as most women will not die from breast cancer, even if they've had HRT.
Yeah. And actually, what causes breast cancer is still unknown. It's very difficult, isn't it, to specifically pinpoint something because there are so many factors. There's genetic, lifestyle, environmental, weight, food, alcohol, there's just so many different factors. Unfortunately, if we knew, it's definitely that, then, like with so many other cancers. And I was very interested, actually, looking at the cancer statistics to see that HRT cuts the risk of colon cancer by up to a third. That's significant. A third less.
No, absolutely.
Through having HRT.
Yeah, and the benefits are not strengthened.
Yeah. And those benefits
are not strengthened.
Yeah, don't seem to be getting there. And I think when you look at breast cancer statistics, far, far more women will get breast cancer who are not taking HRT than who are, because, unfortunately, there's only a very small number of women currently taking HRT. Do you think after the programme and the launch of the charity, there's going to be this massive influx into GP surgeries? And how can GPs be prepared to cope with this now?
I think that it will raise awareness, and awareness will feed demand. And that's good because it's an issue and it needs addressing. And I think GPs are very good at managing demand. And now we're offering the support of the education. What the hope would be is when they see a woman with, for example, breast cancer, they're able to weigh up the evidence and present it in a way that we've just talked. So a woman can feel able to decide for that, rather than just going, HRT will give you breast cancer, which is what has been happening for several decades. And it's not correct.
Yeah.
So we want to help GPs. I know that they have I'm one of them. We have an incredibly challenging job, but the last year has really shown how important we are to society. We get a fraction of the budget to be able to manage the volume of patients we do. So we need to have good quality evidence-based care, and we want to support them with education so they can have the right tools. And it's starting from the grassroots. Unfortunately, we've got to work with what we've got. And if we start with training now, we can change things very quickly.
Yes.
In 6 hours, in fact.
In 6 hours, I love that. What can you do to change not only your life, but impact so many other people's lives in 6 hours? Well, I sincerely hope that everybody watching this and listening to this will be able to contact their surgery if they're living in the UK. And just ask the question, the next time you're on the phone or you're in email communication, or maybe even, dare I say it, going in to see somebody face to face, just say, I hear that you've been offered the menopause training free of charge. Which practitioner is taking it up, so that I've got that for future reference. And I have to say, massive congrats to everybody at the Menopause Charity. I am so proud to be an ambassador, and I know that you as a trustee with a specific focus on education are doing such amazing work. And I would just like to say that one of the things that really impressed me about the charity is the decision not to take any funding from pharmaceutical companies. And I know that's a big one because I'm involved in many other charities, particularly healthcare charities, that are funded by Big Pharma. And inevitably, there's going to be a conflict. And the fact that this charity is completely impartial and is going to focus on research and education, it's a really wonderful thing. A massive congrats to the recent launch of it. You must be beyond thrilled, really.
We are absolutely delighted. And again, we tried to keep it pharmaceutical free, and 14 Fish is pharmaceutical influence free as well. That just means it's, we don't have any of the conflicts at all. No, they're both, we've kept them completely free, and we made decisions as trustees to do that. And we're very proud of that. And, we're open to donations from everybody else, and we need that to keep the charity moving and doing what it wants to do. And, but, for the moment, we really want to push with this education movement and get the health professionals working with us.
Fantastic. Well, I will make sure that below here, in the little URLs, that there is a link. And as Dr. Radhika says, you know, funding really important. Obviously, lots of charities saying that, but for a charity that is so impactful for the health and welfare and benefit of so many women, not only in the UK, but obviously globally, because it's a resource, an online resource that can be accessed anywhere in the world, completely free, totally impartial, not funded by pharmaceutical, and yet wanting to do so much in the world of education and research. I know that there's a lot of campaigning that will be coming online to fund research, because a lot of women's healthcare issues are just so underfunded and poorly researched. As we've seen recently, I know I've talked here with Dr. Newson about trying to get some research into estrogen helping with COVID and long COVID, and that's an ongoing battle. So I'm really hoping that the charity can step up and play a part there. Huge congrats, and thank you for your time here today. I'm so looking forward to getting together in real life, hopefully, with my fellow ambassadors and the trustees of the charity, and just continuing to make a noise. Are you feeling a little bit more positive now about the future?
Oh, absolutely. I think the future is going to be incredible, and I hope it goes from strength to strength. And even if it takes a while to see, I think we're on a real big movement towards making things better. And I think by the time we see a full circle, it'll be better for everybody, not just the women.
Absolutely. It's a great note to end on. Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Radhika Vohra, for being with me. And as I said before, the links will be below, so do please click. You'll find lots more. Obviously, EarleWellbeing.com. There's lots of podcasts. There's lots of other little sections on YouTube here. If you've enjoyed this, please leave a comment. Let's keep these conversations going. Don't forget to click the subscribe button to see the next episode. And if you want, there's even a little bell that you can press that means it pings into your inbox, gives you an alert whenever there's a new video. But thank you very much for being part of this really important and brilliant community here on YouTube. Thank you.